Hello everybody, this is Ryan from Ryan's Guitar Shop. Today I have another Finale Dorico comparison as I've been slowly making the transition to use Dorico now that Finale is no longer available to use. I've been finding a few features that I really like much better and just thought I would share them. So I had a previous video where I was talking about how using duets and switching layers and transitioning and making different parts, and so you can watch that video here. But today I want to show you how I can add tablature and how tablature works in Dorico versus Finale. So let's go ahead and take this duet again. And in my previous video, I showed how easy it was just to go from guitar 1 to guitar 2 and so forth. So I want to add tablature to guitar 1 and 2 eventually. So at this point here in Finale, I would have had to take the guitar 1, I would have had to add an extra staff as guitar tab, and then I'd copy and paste all of that, or copy or highlight all of this and drag it down to the tab staff, and it would automatically change it. So wasn't too bad, but here's what we do in Dorico to make that available to us. We want to be able to add the tablature, and so first thing is I would go ahead and I just want to add it to guitar part 1 for now. So what we do here is we go into the layout tool under library or layout options. Okay. And what we're going to do is go to players and fretted instruments. Now you can see guitar 1 and guitar 2. It's showing notation only. All I have to do is hit tablature, and we might as well go ahead and do it for guitar 2. Notation and tablature, obviously I could do tablature only. And so what we're going to do is we're going to show the rhythms, because I always like to show the rhythms in the tablature as well. I think it's very helpful to have both rhythms on both. So we're going to go ahead and hit apply and close, and there it is. So maybe a few different button clicks, maybe that didn't save a whole lot of time because I had to go into one menu and do a couple of things, but it's a little slicker instead of just having to make sure I hit every measure highlight. So that's that. Now obviously this looks a little wonky and a little crazy here, but here's the key. The biggest key here for me is adding these circles automatically to half notes and whole notes. Finale would never do that. I could add the stems, but it always looked weird for me to have stems and then not have the circles to represent half notes or whole notes. So in Finale, I had to go into like the special characters in text and add basically a text box around this, and then I'd have to move it and size it perfectly to fit this. And then the only problem was if I moved any of those measures or anything in the future, if I had to make edits, then that would I'd have to completely move that around. Now in this case, I don't really like the stems very much. They're a little bit long. So what we can do is we can go into back to library. Instead, this time we go to engraving options, and we scroll all the way down to tablature. And I now have a whole bunch of options to show how that is displayed. So I like to have the stems go down, and then again we can have it from the outside staff or the outermost staff. We can choose that, so we're going to go there. Now the minimum distance, gap, all this kind of stuff, gap between the fretted numbers. So here's the thing here, we can automatically just click to have that centered is my preference. We have the show stems, okay, a couple of bunch of other stuff, dots. I think the dots are nice to have right next to the number. And then I chose this was kind of a nice option. If you have multiple notes stacked up on top of each other, you can use this rectangle where that would save. You can see it's going to save quite a bit of space. And then allow ellipse or perfect circle. It's going to kind of, I think what this means is it's going to kind of change the shape just slightly if it needs to, and so forth like that. And I haven't messed around with every single one of these. Enclosed thickness, not quite sure exactly what that would mean. So the only thing I want to figure out now is the stems, and then that's something I'm going to have to figure out, the length of the stems. I'm not a big fan of the length of the stems. It looks a little wonky. So that's something I'm going to play around with and see if I can get. Alright, so as I was finishing up the video, I realized I'd just take a few minutes and wanted to see if I could play around a little bit, see if I could figure out the stem situation before I finalize the video. So I went back into the engraving options, and as you can see, I have much shorter stems, but they're not necessarily attached to the numbers. There's this disconnect here, and it looks like I have to choose either one or the other option. So instead of the outermost note, I went to the outside of the staff, and that obviously shortened that up. I don't see anywhere in here. Obviously, these menus just jump here. So unless I find anything different, it looks like that's probably the option that I would go with. Again, it looks a little bit different than I'm used to, but again, not the end of the world, I don't think. Just a little bit different, again, layout that I'm used to. And again, I have to get used to that with this new software. I'm going to have some of those different options, but that to me looks, to be honest, a little bit cleaner, even though the stems are outside of the staff instead of connected to there. But the biggest thing is a few button clicks. I have the tablature, and again, for me, the most important thing is to be able to enclose those, especially if I want to only display the tab. So we can go back to layout options, and we can go back and I can select, in this case, tablature only. I definitely want to have those stems. So tablature, I think is much better in Dorico, and hopefully that helps, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.